All right, good morning, everybody, and very warm welcome to this Harbour Area Committee meeting, and welcome councillors and community members, and to staff, any members of the public and media who might be watching via the live stream. We're going to be having a minute silence as part of our council meeting, which is starting at 11:15. So, but just to acknowledge the passing of Her Late Majesty. I know there's a few bleary eyes around the table who watched the funeral last night, and just acknowledge our respect for Her Late Majesty. And it's a very interesting time that we're going through, not having experienced this for 70 years as a country. So, right, we'll just move on to apologies. Are there any apologies? Okay, and none. Any declarations of interest? Okay, if we go to confirmation of the previous meeting minutes, so the meeting held on the 14th of June. Councillor Holding, you're moving that, and seconded Deputy Mayor Tavendale. Any comments on that? Okay, I'll put those in favour say aye, and against, that's carried. Okay, we'll just move on to the item 4.1, the Harbour Area Projects Update. So a bit of activity happening in the Harbour area, so good chance to find out what's happening there. So just looking at who I'm going to pass over to. Is it Mr. Rendell?
Thank you, Mayor Kircher. Good morning, Harbour Area Committee members. Table for your information this morning is the final Harbour Area Projects Update for this triennium. Within this triennium, the underpinning strategic document for the Oamaru Harbour was completed.
Sorry, Josh. Do you mind coming over here? The camera's not moving, so if you bring your laptop over here, hopefully this should work. Sorry about that.
Sorry, my apologies, everyone. Tabled for your information this morning is the final Harbour Area Projects Update for this triennium. Within this triennium, the underpinning strategic document for the Oamaru Harbour area was completed, which unified the views of a large portion of our community into one development plan that detailed how we would further progress the harbour area. It was no small undertaking. You should all be congratulated for your part in doing so. In this triennium, we have seen the largest investment in rock protection in many decades for our breakwater structure, a structure that ensures the harbour and our town's protection from erosion. We have also seen a significant investment made in Holmes Wharf, with repiling completed and the final stages of redecking currently underway. An observation deck has also been added for our community's use. There are a number of projects where we have not yet made as much progress as we had hoped in the early days of completing the harbour plan due to a number of constraints. The current level of investment across a broad range of council's business is high, and this has placed constraints on how much we can undertake in the harbour area. Throughout the update, you'll see a number of projects where progress hasn't yet been made from our previous update, and then this is the reason why. These projects will continue to be worked on, and I'm hopeful we will see completion of a number of our more high-profile projects in the next triennium that will further add to the attraction and amenity of the harbour area. I'm happy to answer any questions they may have regarding the projects that are currently underway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh. All right, members, Mr. Clark. Just remember to put your microphone on.
Thanks, Josh. The one thing I wanted to ask about was the EV charger that was to go into the marketplace area. I don't see it in the report.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, no, sorry, that isn't covered in this report. However, an agreement has been made with Network Waitaki, and there will be an EV charger going into the marketplace area.
Councillor Wallstein.
Yeah, thank you for your report, Josh. Just a couple of questions. On your BW9, access to Breakwater and Sandy Beach, you say it will recommence when resource becomes available to do so. Any idea, or what's the resource? Is just staff that's holding it up, and any idea when that might become available?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. We've got a number of documents from a few consultants that detail a number of the health and safety concerns, as well as some of the environmental concerns. We really need one of our staff members to sit down and go through all of those documents, put them together and try to reconcile the opposing views within there, and then come back with some recommendations on what we could potentially have as some of our safety features, investment made in different safety railings and whatever else we may require. And then once we've decided what we would like to put forward as our safety features, then we would be able to apply for a resource consent. So there's a little bit of work to be done on reconciling the opposing views that we have in a number of different areas. And then to come back on what investment we actually want to make in some infrastructure to enable that resource consent. So, through you, Mr. Chair. Not at this stage, no. I'm hopeful that we'll get something moving early in the next calendar year. As I said before, we do have a number of projects currently underway, and I'm just waiting on having an appropriate person to do it. Yeah.
Second question I had was on the next page, Josh, regarding the footpaths, regarding the the footpath around the corner by, what do you call it, off onto the Esplanade, off, is it Harbour? What's the
Waterfront Road.
Waterfront Road onto the Esplanade. And I note here your comment that the officers are currently working through with Whitestone Contracting. Just a reminder that Kelly and myself are on that committee just to be involved. So make sure we'd love to be involved as with any final design, any changes to the location of the footpaths. I'm sure we'd both like to be included in those discussions. So thank you.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair. So certainly at the moment, there's no anticipated changes to any design. As what we've discussed previously is what's going to be constructed. I'm just working with Whitestone to work out an appropriate time for that work to be undertaken.
Councillor Williams, and then Mr. Murdoch and Mr. Clark after that.
Cool. This is just regarding access to the breakwater. I'm just wondering whether our signage to say that you can't access it is sufficient, because I was privy to a conversation the other day where there was this lady who wandered down there and she basically got knocked over by a seal. And other women were talking to her going, are you allowed to walk down there? She's going, absolutely. There's just no issue at all. But I was stuck. She couldn't walk the next day. And she was my yoga teacher, so it wasn't a very good yoga class after that. But yeah, I just don't know that the public actually knows what's going on down there. So yeah, just make sure that the signage is sufficient.
I'll make note of that and see if we can put some communications out there and then review some of our signage to see if it's still suitable.
It's it's certainly brought up in on social media and so on regularly enough. I would have thought that most people would be fairly aware, and this, yeah, it is about signage in the right place, but also recognizing that it is can be a wild environment at times, and where you put signage it could get bowled over with the next storm. So it's a challenge getting all of that, but yeah, something to work on. Kim. No. Okay. Clarky, would you mind just passing your microphone over? Oh, okay. It's just getting set up. So we'll go to Clarky while that's initializing. So, Graham, is yours not working either now? Oh,
yeah.
Who else is it on? Okay.
John, I just want to ask you about the slipway improvement.
Okay.
I had a look at the updated document on the 6th of September. And I thought it would have been tabled at this meeting. Will it be tabled at the next one? Because it's actually one of those projects that taking a while.
So you just can repeat the question to.
Yeah.
Do we need to turn, yours isn't working, but it's still seeing that it's on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the question there was in regards to the slipway improvement project and whether a report would be tabled for a future meeting. Kevin has provided some well-received feedback on that report, so had expected it to be received. In answer to your question, yes, it should make its way to the next meeting. I had actually originally had it tabled for this meeting, but had to withdraw it as some of the investment case parameters weren't quite where they needed to be to enable you guys to make an effective decision. So I wanted to withdraw it until we could work on some of those issues and then have it tabled for a future meeting so you could make a well-informed decision.
Okay. Graham, do you want to try your microphone, see if that's working now? Just resetting, is it? Okay, you're right now. It's showing that it's on, so can you speak?
Yeah.
I think so.
I was going to ask about the Penguin Colony car park. Just looking at the plan, the area that's not going to be sealed. Just wonder what the reason is.
Okay, so yeah, it's gone off again. So the question is just about the Penguin Colony car park development. The sealing of that. There's an area shown on the map as not being sealed. So just what the reason is.
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair, I can start on that, but Philip, I might want to, sorry, Dr. Agnew might want to add some further detail. The area to the rear of the Penguin Colony car park is anticipated to be expanded in the future for use for the Penguin Colony as expansion is warranted. That's why it's not being sealed. So to allow some space for expansion.
Yeah, pretty good reason, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll see if that's working this time. No, if you can just
So I was just going to believe that it's significantly smaller than I had requested and we had discussed. So when we were first looking at it, there's a concrete power pole on the ground that's at the end of that middle row of proposed car parks. So I had ideally wanted it across there because where you can see where it's been cut across here, it doesn't take in any of our fenced area. It's basically just kind of putting fencing across the back of the car park so people can get from that on the fund. So in terms of usable space, because this is a long-term project and this is our one shot at it, I would be more comfortable with the perimeter and basically to where that you can see there's a breathing space in there. It's really across that line because this space here would essentially half the number of existing options of the over. Yeah. I'm not sure how. I mean, it's a committee decision. Really.
So just I guess to repeat a little bit of that because I think ones online might not have heard it, is just exactly where the lines are and making sure that things are matching up. Guy, can you just turn that one off? Yeah. Okay. Just got a few technical issues. And I do wonder, you know, there's this allocation for 2 bus parks there. So just adding to what your comments have been around making sure there is enough space and in the right place, whether there is room to move those over a little bit more and give more room on that side, but also how the corner might be cut to join the 2 areas together a little bit more, given that there's no parking in there. It's just making sure there's enough room for buses to manoeuvre. So, Mr. Rendell.
Yep. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Yep. I absolutely take on board those comments. As stated within the document, this is only a concept at this stage. So certainly receive those comments and we'll try to integrate them into the design and make some changes before we move ahead.
And just further to that, in the centre, there's the grassed area. Is there something under that that is requiring that to be kept there? What's planned for that spot?
At this stage, there is a power pole located there. I don't believe we were looking at moving that power pole, but I can look further into that.
Oh, yeah, it's not necessarily about that. It's just what that there's a box drawn on the plan. Is that just some engineering dimensions and so on being shown, or has it got a purpose?
I believe part of it is where the stormwater will be channeled into, so there'll be a drainage located at that site.
Right.
But I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. No, thank you. Philippa.
I can probably. I think they are doing some exploratory ground historically. I think they were good step.
Would you mind just going to that microphone over there? The next one, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I think there was thinking that there was a lot of rock underneath that space, and it was going to be really challenging to try and dig into. But I think, here's me speaking on your behalf, sorry, but I think the staff are looking at doing some exploratory work in there coming up. So I think this just is a provision just in case that area can't be flattened to incorporate into the car park.
Right.
That's my understanding anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Certainly, yeah, it's an archaeological site, and you never quite know what's been buried under there as part of the reclaimed land, which I think that is. Graham.
Yeah, look, getting back to that area in the middle, that's what I wanted to ask as well. Is there plans still to shift the crane in the steampunk playground back over to the quarry area? That had been talked about. I'm not sure if that's still happening, but one of my thoughts was with that crane to go back in that actual middle part of the car park with the backdrop of the quarry would be quite appropriate for it. I know a couple of years back that was talked about shifting the crane, and I thought that could be an ideal place to put it aesthetically, and if it's not going to be used for car parking, it would be a good spot to put it, and a historical spot.
Yeah, there's certainly a number of old photos showing a crane with that backdrop. So yeah, as far as that goes, but Josh, has there been any? There's nothing in the plan itself at the moment, or is there?
No, there isn't yet anything in the plan for where that crane will eventually go. But it's certainly something that we could consider.
Councillor Tavendale.
I was just wondering, because it looks to me like there's just the two bus parks and then camper van parks. Just, I guess it's probably more to you, Philippa, whether or not when the penguin colony is sort of at their higher numbers, is that enough?
So I'm pretty comfortable with that plan because usually in the evenings the buses pull into the main car park and offload their customers, and then the driver will take the bus away and go and fill with petrol or check in wherever, and then to pick them up often they'll just park down the road, and often they will use the car park to turn around and leave or pick their people up from there. So I'm pretty comfortable that we don't need to accommodate all of the buses from every night. I mean, at capacity like pre-COVID, we would probably have at the most 5 or 6 coaches, but they don't all arrive and leave at the same time. So I think those two, I think that's gonna work.
I guess it's just looking at the bigger picture and seeing, because I know, we've got buses that park on Itchen Street, which I think is a great drop-off place and things as well. But again, they're probably best to then go and actually park somewhere if they're staying for a long time. And I just wonder, we talk about buses going to park somewhere, and if we've actually thought about where that somewhere is, because I probably had in mind that it was likely to be this area that we were doing, but if there's only 2 bus parks, is that going to work for, how we want to future-proof where we want buses to go if they are in town for some time?
Yeah, like I think what Dr. Agnew's talking about is definitely during penguin viewing time, and there's probably, they've got those other jobs to go and do around refueling and the buses and themselves. But during the day, those parks won't be used as car parks very much, and whether there's an ability to have them as dual purpose. So here's a spot out of the way where buses can park up while their passengers are actually exploring the town. It's interesting proposal. Dr. Agnew.
So those coaches that you see often parked outside on Itchen Street, they tend to carry customers that don't necessarily come to the penguin colony. So they park there so that the customers can visit the bathrooms and then go through the historic precinct. So that's why those coaches park there. We tend not to have a lot of those customers come right down into the harbour. And I think possibly, it might be okay for them to offload their customers and then park the bus somewhere else. But in terms of customers, they're not going to be the same customers that are going to be visiting that space.
Just through the chair, if I may, I'm not probably actually thinking them being customers as such down at the harbour, but I do know that we've got some buses that park for sort of 4 or so hours along Itchen Street there, and there's, I think it's a great drop-off spot, and we should never stop that being the case, but there's probably better ways we can use our parking outside of it.
Yeah, and it might be just as easy as making sure that companies know, hey, look, if you want to park up the bus for a few hours, here's a spot that you can go to. It won't be getting used by all by cars, and they're allowed to park there. Josh, any other thoughts from you? That be feasible, do you think?
Certainly, I think it could be feasible. It's probably really about communicating different options for parking with some of those bus and charter companies when they're here, just so that they're aware of some of the areas where we do have bus parking or parking that's available for them to use. Even a number of areas outside of, say, Scott's Brewery, in and around where the marketplace are, there's a lot of parking there available, and we could potentially integrate some bus parking down in that area as well.
Okay, Councillor Warstein.
Thank you, Mayor Kirchhoff. Just one more question, Josh. The turning circle upgrade outside the Rowing Club, which we discussed at our last meeting, and then subsequently it was found the Rowing Club didn't want it at all, and the Rowing Club committee has requested this work not be undertaken. As such, the project has been placed on hold. Is it placed on hold or has it been abandoned?
It's probably a question for you guys. So previously when we'd spoken regarding the turning circle, obviously we had some robust discussion about whether the project was needed, whether it should be a relocation of the turning circle or potentially just an expansion of the existing turning circle to enable people to turn around a little bit easier. So I suppose I'm saying putting it on hold for now until we can have that conversation about whether we want to try to expand the existing turning circle or cancel the project completely.
Yeah, at the moment it's part of the master plan, so it's making a decision otherwise. And so, if we can get a report that coming through saying, here's what's proposed, what was proposed, here is a different way of doing that, including obviously ensuring more secure safety for any of the kids in the playground from the road. So that will be on the on a agenda in the future. Clarky.
I just looking at the pictures of Holmes Wharf and just congratulate the work that's been done there and the retention of the railway lines. From wearing my heritage hat, it looks really good, and it's been a really good job. The other thing was the observation deck is fantastic, and I did wonder, is there any progress on the Sumter Wharf, any investigations happening with the future of Sumter Wharf now? Holmes Wharf is you know what you're doing now with the piling and decking, and I just wonder if there's any progress on that. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, no, thank you for those words. I think the contractors have done an outstanding job on both the observation deck and the work that they're currently doing on Holmes Wharf. In regards to Sumter Wharf, look, we've learnt a lot of really good lessons from doing Holmes Wharf. In many ways, that was by far and large the easier wharf to do. Attentions now do need to turn to Sumter Wharf to work out exactly what, I suppose, the scale of investment required to bring it up to a stage where it's usable, and I suppose what future use we would like for that wharf, whether it remains as the current full length or becomes shortened, or whether we try to evict some shags from the site or leave it as a bird nesting area. I think there's some discussions to be had there on what the future use of the wharf is, and then we can make some investment decisions around that.
Okay. Right, Dr. Agnew.
Just quickly on, there's been a bit of research this year, last breeding season on the species there, and that site holds 42% of the entire species. So just something to bear in mind when you're having those discussions going forward.
Councillor Kingan.
Really good topic for the next couple of weeks.
Indeed. Need more, don't we? Okay. Someone like to move? We received the information. Councillor Tavendale. Yeah, Mr. Coucher, seconding that. Can you move over to? No, it's not showing up. No. If you don't mind just popping over to one of the others here. Sorry for these difficulties this morning.
Just some comments around things that have already been said. Just going back to turning circle, I think that's a really easy one. There is 3 metres of extra room there to make that bigger without encroaching too much on anything else. And a bit of a fence to protect the kids isn't too hard. I am concerned about the lack of progress on all fronts. We've got a bit of progress on some things, the important bits of rock protection and Holmes Wharf, etc. But time delays cost a lot of money. And as we go on, I think we had spent 45,000 on the access to the breakwater, and that will have grown by now. The more time that we have staff spending on these things and the delays in getting things built, the cost escalates dramatically. So I think that needs to be taken into account when we're looking at funding. There was quite a bit of stuff that was funded in the 2020-21 year, which was the car park to the penguin colony and the road behind the boat club. I realise we've had significant weather events in recent times, but this goes back to 2021. So I would ask the council to have a good look. If we haven't got enough people doing things, we need another project manager. We need to go and find one, or we need to redelegate within the council to get things done. Grant Rose did an exceptional job organising the rock to the harbour, and I congratulate him for that. And it was done basically on time and within budget. And I think we can learn from that. Anyway, that's my comments. Thank you.
Yeah, it's certainly a conversation we're having around at the council table, just as far as in some cases needing to do less so we actually achieve more. We recognise, I think, as elected members, we've been very aspirational about all the things we want to do, but with a pretty major program of work that's happening, some of these things get put in on the back burner, and yeah, it can be very frustrating for everyone concerned. But yeah, we do have to acknowledge that there's a lot of work going on that's taking up time of the roading team and the water team and so on that need to be involved in these projects as well. So not trying to make excuses, it's just the reality of the situation we're in around staff availability and the actual resourcing, both within council and also with contractors at times. It is good to see some of the things moving, and I think, if we can get that roundabout sorted, if we can get the penguin colony car park done, and the other footpath done. Those are all things that are going to make, quite a noticeable difference to the harbour area. So we do look forward to getting those carried out. Just to acknowledge the huge amount of work that Josh has taken on in his role. And we want to make sure we're looking after him as well. So, right. We've got that report moved and seconded that we receive the information. Those in favour say aye. And against? It's carried. So we've got 10 or 15 minutes left to discuss the next item, which is I really would like input from this whole committee about the future of the committee. I think it's been really helpful having community members on it. As we look at a new structure post-election, it's around meetings and committees. It's one we're trialling at the moment around having council meeting every 2 weeks, not as many committees involved, things going direct to council more often, to try and be more effective and efficient with what's happening. So it'd be really good to hear from all the members about what you see as valuable from having this committee. Do you think there's still a place for community members? What type of people do we need on the committee, and what types of things do we need to be talking about? So 10 minutes, see how we go. Do you want to start off, Graham, with your microphone on? It's working. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. I've made a couple of notes here. I'd like to see Oamaru Whitestone Civic Trust continue representing as a representative on this committee. We try to be the watchdog on heritage issues, but also I think we can offer practical help. I must admit I've been a little bit frustrated, like others, about things that haven't happened, but I can understand totally the reasoning behind that. I think the input of the community members has been really, really important, because I think we represent all the different aspects of the goings on at the harbour. So, I would like to see it continue with these representatives. Thank you.
Thank you. We might have to play musical chairs a wee bit to hear from the others, or is it working now?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks
Yes.
like it's working.
Good.
I represent 2 or 3 things here. One is Business South now, but also the heavy traffic side of the traffic and around Oamaru. It's nice to have things that look nice and aesthetically pleasing, and we put lots of things in place, but then you can't get trucks around the place, and we do have to do that to protect the harbour. That is part of an involvement with a whole traffic plan for Oamaru to get traffic in from the north end and out the south end and to various things. I'm not sure how many councillors are aware at the moment, but there's discussion going on now to protect the rail yard, and they're talking about 350,000 tonne of rock to go in there. That's a massive amount of traffic. They're talking 1,500 tonne a day. Doesn't directly affect the harbour, but it does affect all your traffic lines. The roading team here has got some long-term plans that they're looking at the junction and looking at, we use T Street, or what happens down at Itchen and Tyne. So all that comes into it, and I think it's a very important part of the harbour and the town to make sure we've got good representation, so that when we're finished, that things can actually fit around where we're going.
Thank you, George. Kevin?
Look, I'd just like to say that I think with us community people being here, you get to see another side of how the harbour works. As you know, I work down there all the time, and being part of the yacht club, I represent not just the yacht club, but harbour users. And so I think it's very important that we're on a committee to help guide the projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you might as well go to the fourth community member and
Yeah, I can
do all the community members
add to
first.
that. Well, obviously, I bring a completely different skill set to the group that I think, as we've highlighted today, going forward with the Sumter Wharf project, the Breakwater issues, I can, support and bring a different perspective. That's probably, it's really important, of course, going forward with what we've got to deal with. So I agree. I think we're really, really valuable as members.
So, yeah, that was certainly my feeling, and you all bring different perspectives and aspects into it, which are all very important ones. And I just want to make sure that you felt that your time was valued as well, and that you were able to make contributions. So that's very much appreciated. Councillor Davendale.
Really just echoing you. I think that the community members around the table have really added a whole lot to it. The working kind of understanding of the harbour and looking at different aspects. So I think it would be a really good move to keep them on board if they're willing. And good luck to you.
Thanks. Councillor King.
Yeah, look, I certainly do see the value of it, of the involvement. But I understand your frustrations about being on a committee and not seeing things happen straight away. And I'm afraid that's kind of what council's like, really, that even for us at times, things have got to be put in order and priorities sorted and the like. And it can take time to do things, but good things take time.
It's been there a long time now. It's going to be there for a long time in the future, and it'll all happen. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, just echoing the same. And the other thing I want to add is, now that you've sort of got into the swing of things and can see how slow it is, and coming to an understanding of how frustrating it can be, it would be a shame to have a change of people. So just, keeping the same people, it would be fantastic. So thank you.
Councillor Wallstein.
If I just echo the comments of my fellow councillors, and just to add a thank you to you for our committee members. You have brought a different aspect to the committee. I think it's been very valuable, and I'd be very keen to see it continue as well. So just thank you for what you've done so far.
Probably just another question would be, is there anyone or any aspect that's not represented here that we should be considering? And it might not be something you can answer today, but perhaps get back to me. But just, like I say, we've got 4 people who are bringing really good things here. Are there others? Have a think about that one. Right, Councillor Holding, we'll get what are your thoughts on it? You're the only one that hasn't.
Sorry, no, I don't want to sell the echo chamber, but I think we've had a pretty good diverse team here with heritage representatives, science and conservation. Obviously, Kevin with the harbour use and marine background, and then obviously your construction and industry background. It's been pretty valuable, and we've got it pretty well covered. Only probably time it gets a bit murky is just making big budget decisions without other background information, but I don't see that as being too much of a barrier moving forward.
Okay, no, thank you. No, that's been helpful. Appreciate your views, and I think despite the fact that these things take time, I think having the master plan has definitely been a good step forward. Gives a bit more certainty, and having as Dr. Agnew's pointed out this morning, having some of the expertise for each of these different projects is really good. So we certainly appreciated you being here and being part of this process. And I'm pretty happy to see it carry on post-election. So thank you very much for that. So I'll just note that conversation. Okay, is there anything else before we close?
Okay.
Yep.
Just adding in about the slowness of things. I feel like we've been doing some foundationally huge projects though too, that are sort of setting the the base for the future going forward. And so once we start getting going on those other things, it's going to actually start happening quite quickly. You know, it's still going to take years, but it is going to change a lot quicker than we've been seeing it change, evolving at the moment. So I think, yeah, we've got some great things underway. So we should feel pretty proud of what is happening and not be too concerned about how slow it's all occurring.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions. And we're going to have a break in the live stream at the moment. We'll be recommencing at 10 a.m. with the Performance Audit and Risk Committee. But to all the members, as this is the last meeting for the term, thank you very much for everything you've contributed over the time, and look forward to hopefully seeing you on the other side. Declare the meeting closed.
Sorry, we'll have to start again. The microphone wasn't turned on. So for those online, you'll now be able to hear hear proceedings. So welcome to everybody to the final meeting of this current triennium of the Performance Audit and Risk Committee. And welcome to those in the room and anybody watching online. The meeting, apologies as the first item on the agenda, and we're all present apart from Mayor Kircher, who is in the building and very close by. So, and welcome to Simon online. Welcome, Simon. We will hold any apology for Mayor Kircher in advance. In the meantime, I'm sure he will turn up. Any declarations of interest in proceedings today? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to confirmation of the previous meeting minutes. Now, there are two lots of minutes, one in public excluded and one in public. If nobody has any matters to raise in the PE minutes, we can perhaps pass them both in public to avoid having to go into public excluded later. Everybody happy with that? Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, there's one very small correction of the public minutes on page 8, first line.
Microphone, Jim.
There's one very small, small correction on page 8 in the public minutes. First line, the report, comma, as circulated, comma, primarily focused on. So I think the first focus needs to come out.
Right.
It's under memorandum reports number 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
With that,
So with that correction, Jim, you have no.
absolutely happy
Yep.
to.
All right. So we'll consider both sets of minutes in the public session of the meeting. So if I just get back to the right page again, I just skipped up forward to the page that Councillor Hopkins was talking about. So no, we haven't yet. So do you do them separately or together?
I'll do them separately.
Yeah. So would someone like to move the minutes of the meeting? Oh, you did, Jim.
Yeah.
You did. Okay. Was that correct? No. Well, we're doing the minutes of the public meeting first. So the minutes of the public meeting held on 23rd of August at 12:46 p.m. Yep. Councillor Hopkins, seconded Councillor Holding. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare that carried. Then the minutes of the public excluded meeting also held on the 23rd of August 2022.
I'm prepared to move, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kingan. Seconded Councillor Williams. Are you not? Okay, sorry. Right, Councillor Halalady. Councillor Halalady to second. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? Declare that carried as well. Right, so that's the both minutes have been confirmed. Now moving on to the decision report, which is the Waitaki Annual Resident Satisfaction Survey Report, 2021-22. And we have Mandy here, to Ms. McIntosh to introduce us, I assume, Mr. Hope as well. So who's going to kick it off?
I'll beat Mandy to the punch. Yeah, so this is just presenting the overall results for the resident satisfaction survey that was undertaken in 4 tranches across the year, using 2 different methodologies, which are included in the report. Really where a decision is required rather than just receiving the information is note 4 in terms of the recommendations. So Mandy will talk to that and give some background. Yeah, sort of, I suppose, seeing a decline in results, which is disappointing, but perhaps just reflects where the country and the community is at the moment. You know, probably of particular interest to me, comments like the value for money and financial management, which are on pages 31 and 73. Yeah, these are pretty intractable matters that are quite hard to move, but particularly in the financial management space, it's a very significant percentage of the respondents are don't knows, so nearly a third of them. So that really does, the way the survey is conducted probably gives an overrepresentation to sort of negative comments, which has quite a flow-on effect to sort of the overall view of council. And then value for money is a bit similar. People either have very strong views on it, or sort of no view at all, and that strong view is generally that I think rates are still perceived to be very expensive in Waitaki, yet all the surveys we participate in for similar sized councils, we've moved consistently sort of down the list of relative impacts on the community to now where we sit very much middle of the pack, which is probably a good place to be. And then if you look at a lot of the councils around in a similar sort of ranking table, they really don't offer the same number or scope of community facilities that this council does. So just one of those hard things that perception is a very hard thing to shift. But yeah, we will keep trying. So that's sort of my two things that jumped out at me. And then over to Mandy just to talk about some of the more technical aspects of it. And then we'll open it up for question, comments and discussion.
Thank you. Yeah, well, the recommendation that we've made today is to change the postal to online methodology. And the reason for that is whilst we did test both forums this year, the postal to online, we are finding that we're getting a more substantive result from our residents. People are being caught off guard when they're making those phone surveys. So they're often what we see from the feedback verbatim that we receive, it's not as clear and as succinct as what the online is, because they're doing it often when they're caught off guard and they're doing it when they're in the middle of something else. And so the verbatim that we're receiving with the online, while some of it is more negative and it's more full and more complete, and we get better understanding of how our community is feeling through this process. The other recommendation that we're making is, start the sample size of 400 and also to introduce a quality of life set of questions. Now, a number of the councils that Key Research have been working with, they've introduced these questions on the last sort of 3 years because they saw a decline in the results over that time. So they introduced a set of questions which are included in the report. They will be refined this year to make them more specific to the wellbeing change that they're noticing around the communities. But it's giving an understanding of how your community is actually feeling at that time. And I think that's really important for us to capture how that's reflecting through our results and those changes. So they have noticed when people do change to the online portal to online process that the results are lower than the telephone format as a general rule. And I think it's because people are actually taking the time to respond more full and completely to that. So that's the recommendation that we have there. Open to discussion.
Thank you, Paul and Mandy. So, yeah, the comments were, so yeah, Councillor Hopkins, you want to kick questions, comments off?
Why, one of the important things about any survey is its size, therefore its reliability / margin of error. Why are we knowingly moving from one where we're getting a higher response, albeit perhaps we're presupposing it may be a bit rushed, to one that's lower because people say, I'm presuming they're saying, I don't have the time. I'm just too busy for this. Why are we doing it?
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Prior to this year, we did 400 as our sample size, and that was deemed a robust sample size. We increased to 800 this year just so that we could run the trial of the online portal in conjunction with the telephone, because we use that telephone results as our standard here, as we've had a comparative measure. But if we move to the online portal for the future, we have a comparative base for the year going forward of what we had from this, because otherwise we'd be comparing in future an online result against a hard telephone result.
So just a supplementary question then, will you have a minimum number of responses that will be defined as an appropriate resident survey?
Correct. We'll use the same sample size as we previously had the year before now of 400, and that's deemed a robust sample size in this.
Just a follow-up question from me, Mandy. Paul made the point that at the present time in council rankings, Waitaki is in about the middle of the pack. Going to the postal to online and getting worse results, that means we'll probably fall down the ranking pecking order quite a bit down. Are other councils around the place changing as well, or is it just Waitaki making the change?
A number of the councils.
No, my comment about the middle was actually just in terms of residential rates.
Okay.
But it wasn't anything to do with the survey results. It's merely, what do we charge a typical property and how did that compare with similar districts? And that's what that reference was to, not the survey.
Not the
results.
survey. Thank you, Mr. Hope, for clarifying that. But I think the question still applies, though, I think, in terms of our rankings as opposed to other councils.
Yeah, sure. The other councils have moved to the online portal and done a trial on that recently, as in the last couple of years. I think Ashburton changed last year to strictly online portal. And that seems to be, and when they've done that trial that we did over the last year, none of them have gone back to the telephone format. Whilst the online format is slightly more expensive, they are all finding, and whilst they are all getting slightly lower results on that first, pull through and ongoing, that it's a new baseline that they've said to set. Like, don't treat it as a lower trend, treat it as a new baseline from what to operate from. But the councils that have done that online portal trial have then stayed on that format because they do see it as a better format for the wider community. We've also been, through using that online portal this year, been able to like target specific community areas and community reach. So you can actually tailor that a little bit more to make sure you are incorporating the wider mix across your community than just the random phone calls. So you've got a little bit more capability to actually try and make sure you're getting a reach, even though they are targeting, random sample across, they are ensuring that they're getting samples from all ages and all sexes. But we've got different community mixes that we need to try and make sure they're getting their voice as well. So that's one thing that this also does.
All right. Thank you, Mandy, for a very full explanation. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Any questions on the survey? Any comments or on the results? And just to add, I know the Dunedin City Council considered their survey recently, and I actually need to go back and look at their results. I forgot, I didn't get around to it. But I do think from memory that the results for Waitaki are well above the results that were achieved by the Dunedin City Council in their resident survey. But I didn't actually go back and check that. Yep. Deputy Mayor Tavendale.
Just want to say that I found that there was probably a bit more information available with this, and it did. I think getting away from the phone thing makes a lot of sense this day and age. And if we get slightly lower ones at the moment, it's just something to take on board and like you said, a new benchmark and move on from there. But also if a lot more councils across the country are doing it, then I think trying to compare apples with apples is helpful as well.
Indeed. Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, and I think in time you should be able to see some trends that is going to make the whole thing helpful. In the meantime, I mean, I know even for myself, I've done surveys at times, and as I put the receiver back down, I thought, gee, I'm not too sure about the accuracy of those answers. Whereas if you've got a bit of time, but the big thing would be to reach, a cross section, I guess, and that's always an issue anyway. But I mean, there's an awful lot of information in here, and sometimes it's almost overload. But if we can get some trends, which will come in time, I think it might be more worthwhile.
Yes, actually, thank you, Councillor King. Yeah, just to back up what you said, I know this time round we had the two surveys running side by side, the telephone survey and the postal to online responses. And in most occasions, not all, but in most occasions, the postal to online was well below the ranking for the telephone survey. So, and there was a comment made in the report about the agreeability, where people are much more, if they're talking to them, are much more agreeable than if they have time to stop and think about it. So, as you say, Councillor King, given time, once the whole thing goes across onto the postal to online, it'll just carry on on a new basis. Councillor Hopkins.
Look, I think we have to take some of this on the chin. I really do. The inescapable fact of the matter is we're a performance audit and risk committee. Well, the community's audited us and it's judged our performance and overall financial management, overall performance, overall value for money, overall reputation, how rates being fair and reasonable, all down between 6 and 9%. And that constitutes a poorer performance, and it also constitutes a greater risk for reputation and endorsement in the community. I think Alex has recognised this. I think Alex saw this perhaps sooner and more clearly than us. And for me, these results absolutely confirm the necessity for transformation and the need for it to deliver what we are intending it to deliver.
Yep. I'd just like to add a comment too, that on page 17, there's a paragraph there that says inclusion or exclusion of don't knows. We prefer to add don't know or don't have an opinion option to our 10-point scale. So as they point out, that many people now would probably actually make perhaps a ranking, which it doesn't really, they're not too sure about. Well, that would give them the option just to say, don't know, or don't have an opinion. So that's probably very helpful as well. Okay, any further comments? No? Well, can we go back to the, oh, sorry, Mayor Kircher?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there are a lot of unknowns in these things, and you know, a lot of it is perception, and you know, that helps us understand what we need to communicate better. But I do know that we're currently in the biggest ratepayers survey that we do every 3 years, so we'll see how that one ends up. But thanks very much for bringing this information through to us, and yeah, there's some things definitely to work on. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, Councillor Percival.
It's quite interesting. I got 2 phone calls on the survey, and I expressed how wonderful we all were, and I don't see it showing up in this.
The first question you were asking, Councillor Percival, should have been, no, you were an elected member of the council. You should have said yes, and you're excluded. So that may be why they didn't take your comments into account. So if there's no further discussion, sorry, Simon, you've got your hand up now. Yep. Simon.
Yeah, good morning. Look, I was just going to add to Councillor Hopkins' comment. I think sometimes when we look at these surveys, it's really important for us to look at how we compare with other councils. So if you ask the majority of ratepayers whether they thought they were getting value for money, I think almost all of them would always say no. We have to make sure when we're looking at these loaded questions that we compare our rating to other councils rather than just saying, gosh, 9% is a terrible result. I think that's an important thing to do.
Yes, indeed, Simon. I know from my own point of view, talking to people at times, and they tell me all the things they think that council should be including in the present rates, and we're not.
Yeah, it's like saying to someone, are you happy with your electricity bill? I mean, yeah, the answer's always going to be no.
Exactly, precisely. People always think they should get more for the same money. Okay, so going back to the recommendations on page 12. Oh, Councillor Holding, sorry, Jeremy.
Thank you, Colin. I was just going to make a comment for a new incoming council. Sometimes this sort of document Bill was saying there's a lot of information in there, and I think it's quite valuable to have this actually workshopped when you have new members elected around the table. So just a note for the Australian.
Yep, good point. Thank you, Jeremy. No further contributions. All right, so back to the recommendations on page 12. There are 4 recommendations there, and Mayor Kircher, you happen to have moved all 4, Mayor Kircher. Someone happen to second. Councillor Holding, Hopkins, sorry. Councillor Hopkins seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Against, declare that carried. And thanks to the staff for the amount of work, as Councillor Holding said, the amount of work put into the scheme. Thank you, Mandy, for your input. And so we've already dealt with our public excluded section of the meeting, so we don't need to go there. So at this stage, there's no further business of the meeting, and before I declare the meeting closed, this being the final meeting of the Performance Audit and Risk Committee for this triennium, I'd just like to thank all the members on the committee for their deliberations over the last 3 years. Also thank Mr. Hope and his team for supporting the committee, for the information provided. Thank you to Simon for your input as an independent member. And yeah, Mayor Kirchner, make a comment as well. Thank you.
Yes, please. Yeah, on behalf of all of us, I think, Mr. Chair, thank you for your contribution to this. You bring some skills to this role as a past accountant to, that most councils would be quite envious of. So thank you for all the work that you've put into this and for the skills that you've brought, and wish you, this isn't your first retirement. You retired from your other job, but
Yes,
you've had 9 years with us now, and it's been greatly appreciated. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kirchner. Much appreciated. Thank you, Mayor Kirchner. Much appreciated, and thank you, team. And I'm a little bit sad about ending my term time on council, but as everybody says, the time always comes to move on, and I've decided it's my time to move on. So, and I'm sure the committee will continue next training without me. So thank you all for your friendship and support, and all the best for next time. For those that are coming back next year, next term, all the best. So, and with that, I'll declare the meeting closed. And thank you to those online for your interest in the proceedings. And well, thank you. Declare the meeting closed.
Thanks, Colin.